Shall we start on this note? I was hoping that we can just briefly touch on the question of the Supreme Court's verdict, which came yesterday on the District Assembly elections, and then we can move on and deal exhaustively as much as we can with the State of the Nation address. Abdul Malik, the District Assembly elections, very important part of our democratic process. Is it a devolution process or whatever it is that we are trying to do, or decentralization? And this is the key, the pivot, the fulcrum at which we hold it. Now, it's supposed to hold that elections on the 3rd of March. The EC, unfortunately, cannot do that anymore because an instrument, CI 85, is it? Right, that it was supposed to use, had been put before Parliament, and it hadn't matured at the time it closed the nominations, it opened and closed nominations for the process. Some say the decision of the Supreme Court will cost the nation a lot.
Yes, to the extent that some public resources in terms of financial outlay were expended. That's obvious. The state loses. But this is just a classic example of, some level of institutional arrogance and impunity. It ought not to have come to this point because the EC was advised ahead of time. There were many signals to the effect that what you were doing was not in tune with appropriate legislation, with the laws of the land. Take your time. It's a EC that I respect a lot over the years. If you're talking of its track record, I'm one of those who advocate for it, in spite of its challenges and sometimes low points. Generally speaking, it's done a good job for this country. But in some instances, the arrogance, the impunity, come to the fore, and it doesn't help anybody. And I'm so happy that the judiciary has cured this mischief. I hope next time they will listen to people who give them advice.
The judiciary, Kuku, is a part, is an arm of the state, of government. The judiciary ought to deliver its judgments, taking into consideration the scarce resources. So much has already been pumped into this process. It would have come off next week, and we stop it because one man is unhappy.
If the judiciary hadn't done what they did yesterday, it would have been a vote for impunity. And it would make some state institutions think that they can do anything, anyhow, anytime. That's what's a cure for the larger interest in the long term, for everybody to know that is the rule of law, that is basic, that's fundamental. No? So really, it was so avoidable. It just didn't make sense. So in this context, I think the EC has failed and failed abysmally. And it's just good that that mischief has been cured and cured appropriately by the highest court of the land. I've heard people asking for some further, actions in terms of willfully causing financial loss and for the AG to come in to be triggered into this matter. I'm not sure the AG will do that.
No, but you have just noted here that something is wrong.
Yeah, but I'm not sure
the EC, what it did was simply display institutional arrogance.
Yes.
It had been forewarned, and it ignored the warning.
Yes.
So this willfully causing the nation this loss.
I agree. There's obvious financial loss out there. It might even be classified as willful because of the proud advice that they were being given.
And you say nothing should happen in that regard?
I didn't say that. I said the AG will not do it. There's an extension between me predicting that the AG will not do it and say nothing should be done. There's an extension. I haven't said nothing should be done. In some other circumstances, somebody ought to be resigning for nothing at all from the EC. Look at what happened in court. Take a look at what happened in court. And I didn't follow the proceedings, but I did some reading on you sent out some research materials.
Right.
So I read them, and I realized that the EC's legal team consistently changed its positions. It comes with some other legislation that is using to back it. When it's thrown out, it comes with a different... Pathetic. It reminded me of some aspects of the Supreme Court proceedings relative to the petition. I'm not going there, but I'm saying it reminded me in some specific instances. Okay. We should get a situation where some of this legal department... No, it's not even a legal department. The EC doesn't have a... The Mr. Kwashi.
Yeah, they should have a legal department, but often they will still need external solicitors to assist.
Yes, but for some time now, it is the face of their legal interventions or litigations and things. Mr.
Yes, he's retained. I think that's what it is.
That's right. I think they should beef the place up. That aspect of the EC must be beefed up. A little of what I saw at the Supreme Court during the
election. You are indicting the lawyer?
Not in a general sense, because I don't even qualify. I don't deserve the right to assess him and his competence.
You just question his competence.
Particular instances, in particular cases. Yes, I'm doing so. I'm entitled to do so. And I'm saying that look at what happened in this particular case, where he came forward with about 3 different legal defenses that all collapsed.
Okay, so we're supposed to be brief about this and move on.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Now, Felix, the 7-member panel of the court was unanimous in castigating the embarrassing show by the EC in the defense, and it was magnanimous by saying the EC did not satisfy them in the defense that they put up, because the constitutional instrument, we know when it is placed before Parliament, it has to mature within a certain number of days.
21, isn't it?
21. It was not matured yet, and this was the instrument to demarcate the boundaries for the process. It had not matured yet, and the EC went into the process. Now, Koku is suggesting that to the extent that in Parliament, members raised concern when the EC began to go into this process, that the lawyer for the fisherman who went to court also makes us understand that he wrote 2 times to the EC and was never even dignified with a reply. He says that, I quote, Afenyo Marking, he says, I personally wrote 3 letters to Dr. Afarijan. The last one dated January 15. This man decided to ignore. I could not even get the courtesy of receiving a reply. Unfortunately, I thought they had such a strong defense, but they struggled in court, and it's a big shame. On the back of these revelations, should somebody not be answering some questions as far as causing the nation so much loss in this regard?
Well, I mean, with the benefit of hindsight, we can say these things. I'm sure the EC had good reason for embarking on the steps that they took in this particular instance. But the rule of law and due process trumps every other consideration. So to the extent that the highest court of the land, the Supreme Court, has unanimously indicated that the EC was wrong in doing what it did, I believe that it offers an opportunity for us to clean our acts as a people. The EC should put its house in order and ensure that the right things are done. At the very least, it should afford more time for more planning to be done, more preparation, and the creation of a level playing field for all candidates. It is regrettable that a number of candidates who had put themselves up had made preparations that involved significant amounts of money and other resources. They had put in time and energy and effort, and were looking forward to contesting these elections next week. But be that as it may, it is important that we respect the laws of the land. Going forward, the lesson in that is that the EC perhaps may have to review some of its processes. If it is the case that there's some deficiency in terms of the quality of legal advice that they get, they may want to look at that and augment.
On the back of the information that's available to us, you don't agree with Kokubako when he says this is sheer institutional arrogance that ought to be punished?
I said that on the benefit of hindsight, you can take this stand. At the time that the debate was on, the EC, I'm sure if you encountered them, would have defended their position. The only arbiter in this matter is the Supreme Court. And you do know that people can lose cases and still insist that their case was good. But we go by the direction of the Supreme Court. So I do not believe that the argument that they have caused financial loss is sustainable. It is just that the Supreme Court found their actions to be inconsistent with the national constitution or the laws of the land. But going forward, we can all save ourselves this, if you like, embarrassment and waste of time and money and effort if we did well to play by the rules. Beyond that, I do not want to say more.
Okay. Now, the embarrassment appears so apparent that you don't need a lawyer to appreciate that this is what it is, because many Ghanaians have come to know that when a constitutional instrument is prepared, it comes to you guys in Parliament, and it takes 21 days to mature, and for you know, an institution like the EC to have gone ahead when the thing had not matured, you know, there were many ways by which it could have stopped this process. One single fisherman is aggrieved, and you contest him in court, where we know sometimes you're able to meet them, have a discussion with them, and then you sort them out, and everything, you know, is settled on the quiet.
Yeah, maybe to come in, let me say that perhaps what is happening now is, as Kweku rightly put, is an element of impunity on the part of EC. I remember that way back in August last year, I tabled a motion in Parliament requesting the Speaker to invite the chairman of EC to come and brief Parliament on its preparation it is making towards the conduct of this year's District Assembly elections. Of course, the Speaker, within his own wisdom, decided to change the motion, but rather even invited the chairman of EC to discuss with Parliament the ways he's using to handle these particular elections. But given what happened in the immediate past district level elections, perhaps the EC should have been informed that it ought to be well prepared for these particular elections. For me, what is more important is that the citizenry of this country are becoming more and more awake as regards their rights and what have you. So it is about time state institutions should know that they cannot take the people of this country for a ride. And more especially given the fact that EC had just recently run a national elections which results had to be contested in court for well over 8 months before it was finally decided. So if this same institution was going to run another elections, it behoves on it to be very careful, to be sure that almost all the necessary steps are taken to avoid any further problems. So for me, it's a wake-up call for EC. What I pray for is that individual people who had filed to contest the elections will not even take the EC on. I have heard 1 or 2 people who are preparing to do that. And should that come across from people all over the country, we have so many electoral areas.
On for what?
No, because they had more or less a social contract with EC. EC was to run an elections that they have invested in. And of course, they had put in a lot of money and what have you, thinking that come Tuesday, the election is going to take place. Then 2 or 3 days before the time, they are told that no, the elections is no longer even taking place. The whole process will have to begin.
What do you say?
Again.
Shouldn't they consider this as simply bad debt? Because this one...
Yeah, that will be left to the judgment of the individual. But if I were involved, perhaps I would be the first person to take the EC on.
You would?
Yes, let me tell you. Let me be frank. Okay. And if anybody should approach me to assist, perhaps I will do that. Because for once, we'll have to put state institutions at their right place. And perhaps the best way to do it is to make sure that the law is applied when necessary.
I see. So what do you expect to be the EC's attitude towards reorganizing a new one?
First, I want to say that I was humbled by the EC's own admission of the fact that they've aired and the announcement which even ensued after the ruling. So I want to believe that they are going to start the process all over again by opening nominations and allowing people to file and restart the whole process. I want to believe that this time around they will be more than cautious when it comes to consideration of this issue.
They have suspended it to an unannounced date. In a statement that they issued titled Suspension of District Level Elections, it says that, and this was signed by Ms. Georgina Opoku Amankwa, Deputy Chairperson, Finance and Administration, in view of the Supreme Court decision in the matter of Benjamin Ayi-Mensah versus the Electoral Commission on Friday, the 27th of February 2015, with regard to the maturity of CI 85, the district level elections and all activities connected with them have been suspended forthwith until further notice. You want to speak again, but sorry, but we are supposed to deal with briefly and move on. Now, Fifi, I don't know what you also think about it. Maybe let's look at beyond what has happened. How should they be conducting the process going forward? And those who have who are complaining of having lost so much money and everything else? How should they conduct themselves?
Okay, thank you very much, Samson, and good morning to your very many listeners and viewers. I think really it's very unfortunate, very, very unfortunate situation. However, I think the very fact that we have unanimity as far as the verdict is concerned shows clearly that the EC obviously got it wrong. I can understand the operational side of it, but I think really I'll have an issue actually with the legal counsel more. Because that really is supposed to be your responsibility. It's supposed to actually help your clients to know whether this is the way to go or not to go, so that if you had to do a quick turnaround, you do so. And I'm really disappointed that, I mean, complete unanimity, it tells you that the case was a bad case. Mm-hmm. That's all I can say, completely bad case. And I hope serious lessons are learned. That all institutions, I mean, actually are much more thorough in terms of not just what they do, but also the kind of legal advice they seek, and not just take it for granted that simply because you represent the state, somehow laws will be bent in your favor. I think really that should be a thing of the past. Laws are meant to be obeyed, and we should not, therefore, in the name of the state, simply just get complacent or just assume that we can do anything and get away with it. I think really this is a bad one.
I see. And what do you say about those who also suggest that something beyond simply condemning the Electoral Commission and its attitude and everything else, something more should happen in the lines of causing financial loss to the state, so that people don't take a cue and misconduct themselves because they think that whatever it is public funds that they are using, so they cannot be bothered. We are waking up to news that former CEO of the Confanoche Teaching Hospital, Barima Osei Asare, who was dismissed, when his contract had not yet expired, upon the, coming into office of the Mahama administration, went to court. He got a judgment. Now, the Confanoche Teaching Hospital's own account is being used to pay him in excess of 700,000 Ghana cedis, because the state is delaying in making the payment. So they garnished the account of Confanoche.
I mean, it's an unfortunate situation. Now, in terms of whether the EC should be charged for causing financial loss, I think the key word there is willful causing of financial loss. I'm not sure it can be established that this is willfully done. I think, honestly, they thought they had, the force of law, behind them. And of course, if they had legal people who clearly told them that, this is the right thing to do. So I don't think really we can establish that case of willfully causing financial loss. But I think really, the entire country should decry this. And of course, government clearly must take a very strong, exception to that, because, we are in need of money badly for very many precious things, and we clearly should not be spending a precious resource, going over this whole process again simply because a state agency a state agency has failed to do what it's got to do.
Thank you very much, Fifi Kwete. So that's where we put that issue to rest as far as our discussion on it is concerned here on Newsfile. Your views and comments are welcome, 1422 and also 1760. You can also post your comments on our Facebook wall, and we will share them with the rest of the world. Okay.